Hey there, in this guide I'll be introducing the base ground you need to know before entering the arena. Note that while I will show the movement techniques in a PvP setting, they can also be used in PvM scenario. While you farm the dungeon or level up, everything in the game takes place on a grid. Each square of that grid is like a vessel containing information. Each object that is present in the game can only be present in one square at a time, and never in between squares. So here's a question: if an object, let's say your character, can only be present in one square at a time, how is movement even possible? The short answer is that there is no real movement in Diablo 1, only the illusion of it. Your character, and every seemingly movable object is constructed by two main parts. The first one is the visual, basically what we see on the screen. Note that the visual part of an entity has actually no influence in the game, it's just a reflection of your character's true self. The second one, known as the soul, shadow or ghost, is what actually takes place in-game. It's invisible to the player, but it is the actual entity that interacts with everything. Whenever you are standing still, your character and his shadow are connected. That will last until a movement is initialized. So let's see what will happen then. The game runs at 1 in 20 frame intervals. With each turn the game refreshes all objects in their given state. In most cases, upon movement your soul will stay on the given square and initiate a status of vulnerability. Blocking won't be possible until you exit this state. On the other side your visual part will start to change frames. Finally, after the last frame of your walk, your soul will teleport to the given square, and if no other movement is initialized, it will also exit the vulnerability state, assuming normal standing position, also known as stance. If a projectile, a spell or an arrow, passes through your walk before it is actually finished, it will look like it passes through your character. That will happen because the projectile won't find a target to interact with, since your actual body is still considered on the previous square. So what will happen if the ranged attack is actually successful? In this example, the warrior is attacking a rogue positioned upwards from him. At some point the rogue will start shooting and eventually hit his target. The warrior gets damaged here because the arrow was aimed or passed through the square which his shadow occupied, which is here. After that, the warrior's shadow gets the information about being damaged. It will cancel the walking animation, and initiate a recovery animation, creating a pushback effect. The warrior will never be able to actually move towards his opponent, but if he cancels his movement, with attacking on an empty square, he will enter a stance and will be ready to block. Normally the rogue will never be able to hit the warrior through his blocking effect. If the warrior is attacking from above, the case will be a bit different. Upon getting stunned while walking downwards your character will actually get pushed forward. That will happen because the warrior's shadow is actually on that square. In this example that will help the warrior to reach his enemy faster. After the first blocked arrow the warrior will be completely safe and will be able to initiate his own attack. As you can get for yourself, positioning is key in this matchup. Simply said, whenever an object is moving upwards or diagonally, he is leaving his current square, and his shadow will remain there until his walk or travel animation is finished. Moving downwards on the other side, the object will enter the next given square in his path, while waiting the animation to finish. In both scenarios, if anything happens to the object, it will happen on the square that its shadow occupies. That will lead to the disengaging technique, which is base ground, if you want a PvP at all. In this example, the sorcerer here is going to be hit by the warrior. Once that happens, he will be stunned, and all his spells interrupted. The only thing he can do is run away, but if he decides to aim to the north, northeast, northwest, east or west direction he will be pushed back again. Walking to the south direction will push forward the sorcerer, and after few hits, he will be free to cast again. A quick note here, while on paper southwest and southeast should work the same way, they are not consistent after the sorcerer is at one square distance from his opponent. That's why moving south is always preferred. The next thing of great importance is how spells work. Now they will have their own shadow and basically move just as characters and monsters do, but additionally they will hit, or not, depending on the direction of movement of their target. The biggest weakness of spells is that normally they will never hit their target if is moving in the southeast diagonal. Because that can result to some very boring gameplay, duelists are forbidden to walk in such manner for more than 90% of the time. Now while pure diagonal walk is useful, it won't really allow you to attack or reposition your character, you are just stuck there. Gladly, there are many ways a player can walk to avoid being hit by projectiles, also known as bunny hop. The exact reasons about when you will be hit while walking can be a bit complicated since there are too many variables, but a general way to make your moves is to imagine a line for each cardinal direction your opponent faces. Whenever you want to cross one of these lines, you must walk in the southeast diagonal, otherwise you will be hit. Versus a sorcerer, for example, on paper you should expect to be hit in 1 to 2 squares radius if you are walking in non-diagonal manner. That may vary depending on latency. The further you are away from the sorcerer, the less chance you have to being hit. Going upwards is a lot riskier than going downwards since you are leaving your shadow behind. Now here's a bunny hop example versus a sorcerer. You'll follow a diagonal line until you pass one of the lines of fire, then you'll make a turn towards the sorcerer and immediately enter a diagonal and repeat the process. Even if you are very close to the sorcerer, his fireball won't have the speed to reach your shadow on the yellow square, but an arrow can. If you want to retreat as soon as possible, you can walk in a zigzag manner. Going downward is the way to go since your shadow will enter those squares, and leave near to no chance of being hit. You must be in 1 to 2 squares away from your opponent's line of fire. If your opponent teleports forward to increase his chances of hitting you, you can just prolong one of the diagonals, create some distance, and start all over again. In this next walking technique you are trying to reach your opponent as soon as possible, yet again you are avoiding the cardinal lines of fire, but even then expect to be hit in 1 to 2 squares from your opponent. Be prepared to use a potion when you do that. Versus a rogue player you should expect to be hit in 3 to 5 squares radius, the closer to the cardinal lines the riskier, if you are walking in non-diagonal manner that is. You should never walk upwards towards the rogue, since you will always be hit as far as he is shooting at you. If you want to zigzag versus a rogue, first you must be at least 3 squares away from him, otherwise you will be hit. If the rogue player teleports forward, you will have to prolong one of your diagonal line of movement. Remember that you can always stand your ground and block the arrows with your shield, even if you are a sorcerer. Sometimes a rogue can be very persistent in hunting you down, then you'll be left with near to none control over the duel. If you want to flee your current position as soon as possible, you can walk in a downward manner. You'll probably take a few shots while doing so, but the pushback from them will push you forward, thus creating quickly distance between you and your opponent. That's all for today. Big thanks to Phoenix who helped with the video. The next guide will cover latency, desynchronization, and frame drop. Stay tuned and see you in the arena.